Tomorrow, you know where I'm going to be? I don't have to be there, but I want to be there because otherwise I can't get a fair shake. I'm going to be in court. Democrat, it's okay. So I go there tomorrow morning, leave early, or tonight I think I'm leaving late. I'll leave late. Thank you, She said I'm praying. I could use your prayers. All done by political opera. Reid Hoffman is sponsoring this woman that said terrible things from 30 years ago. He took me, I owned 3-4 buildings around it. I owned the hotel next to it. I took her, a totally fabricated story. It's all fabricated. And the lawyer is a political operative. He used to be very close to Cuomo. Do you ever hear of Cuomo? And a political operative. Then you find out they fund it. And we had a special session on funding. And when the judge found out that it was true that they're funding it, he wouldn't let it as evidence, but that's okay.
We could let that roll on and on and on and on. Somewhere Donald Trump is still talking about E. Jean Carroll as he ostensibly runs for president, but you get the idea. He seems dead set on making this defamation trial as bad as possible for him. But I'll remind you, as I always do, that while the portion of the trial that he's talking about there is currently ongoing, his allusion to the fact that he might testify is still possible. I find it hard to believe, but he could testify. We're waiting to find out how much money he's going to owe to E. Jean Carroll. He has already been found liable. He's been found guilty of having sexually abused her and defamed her. He has already been told that making further claims that she is lying or fabricating these details constitutes further defamation. And he cannot go 10 minutes without doing it. As you saw there, he defamed her multiple times in that appearance. As we're gonna get to on Truth Social, every single day he goes on a bleat storm against her. But he is apparently not satisfied with just that. He wants to testify. And when he testifies, he is going to lie about her. He is going to defame her. And the judge and the jury will almost certainly be affected by that. And this could have a material impact on how much he ends up owing her. We have a couple of quotes from people being asked to evaluate what they think about the strategy of him testifying. This is John Jones, former federal judge, who says it's like throwing gas on a raging fire at this point for him to testify. Sure, you could play to your base and use these things as campaign rallies and appearances, but the fact of the matter is it could generate a massive verdict against him. Chris Matai, an attorney who won, you might recall, against Alex Jones, a $1.5 billion jury verdict, a truly massive verdict, said there is no halfway competent lawyer who would recommend to Donald Trump that he should testify in this case unless he was going to apologize and say that he had committed himself to never doing it again. We know that's not going to happen. It's certainly not going to happen. And the issue for Trump is he doesn't have a halfway competent attorney. He has Alina Habba. And so maybe he will end up testifying. And what already looked like it was going to be maybe tens of millions of dollars that he'll owe, that could potentially balloon. I don't know to what number. But David Shuster, what do you think about it? What do you think about the strategy that he's pursuing here?
It's almost as if Donald Trump has banked for so long and being able to ridicule and insult people who he sees as rivals, that for him to suddenly be quiet now, that he would consider that somehow an admission of guilt. And so as a result, Donald Trump is overcompensating by not only continuing to defame her by doing it 20, 30 times on Truth Social, his various media platforms, doing so publicly, even though all the lawyers are warning him, you're gonna go literally, possibly in the $40, $50 million range. And it's almost as if it's more important to Donald Trump. The money is irrelevant to Donald Trump, although I'm not even sure that he has that money. But to him, it's sort of like the principle of, oh no, I wanna continue to be right. I wanna continue to be able to be like my toddler self and insult anybody that I want, and nobody's gonna tell me to be quiet, not even my own lawyers, and I'm gonna prove to everybody that I'm not gonna be quiet by doubling down and doing it even more. It's kind of a weird sickness. And I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. I think if you're E. Jean Carroll and her lawyers, you're just like ka-ching, ka-ching, and just keep records of every time Donald Trump opens his mouth and the number gets higher and higher.
Yeah, I am just continually confused when we see stuff like what Donald Trump is doing, and not just Donald Trump. It makes me very confused about, and I know this is gonna seem like a tangent, but about being rich. As a person who has never been rich, I have been raised and led to believe that it's a good thing, that it's nice to be rich. You can buy whatever you want. He doesn't seem to like it very much. And I don't just mean that he seems to be trying to get as much of his money to be taken from him as possible, but like he could just go and be rich. He could spend the rest of his life touring the world's most fabulous golf courses, eating the best food, racing Ferraris or whatever. Instead, he talks about E. Jean Carroll all day, every day. And it's not just him. Elon Musk seems to be completely unsatisfied with, even far more wealth than Donald Trump has. Maybe it's not as good as we've been led to believe. Maybe it's deeply unsatisfying to be able to have anything you want whenever you want it. And instead, they just have this hunger for something to feel right or to feel superior or to feel attractive. I don't know what, but he seems like a deeply unhappy person. And in this particular case, it could end up really costing him.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe the case that it's not the money that drives Donald Trump, although he's obviously been driven by money, but he places a greater value on his sort of reputation, if you will, of being a counterpuncher his entire life. And I go back to an interview that he did about sparring with Muhammad Ali at one point and how proud he was that Muhammad Ali gave him a compliment. Donald Trump has always loved to be the person that doesn't back down and that counterpunches, even if it's inappropriate, even if it's crass. And now, as he's getting older in life and he's under the national spotlight again, he wants to make that even clear that he is the ultimate counterpuncher who doesn't care, who's not going to listen to people who say, no, you got to back down and go in your own corner because you're wrong here. No, he's not going to do that, because the moment he puts the gloves down and he stops counterpunching, then perhaps he sees himself as having lost, because his entire identity is about ridiculing, about punching back at people in the most inappropriate ways. And to prove to everybody that he's just as tough now as he ever has been, he keeps doubling down. And it's kind of weird. And I think maybe that's something about people who have a lot of money, is that they realize their identity is not caught up so much in all the money they have and all the luxuries, but rather the persona they've been able to create about themselves.
Yeah. Such weird psychology. And unfortunately, it would be great if we could just ignore it, but it's inflicted on us every day. And he doesn't just want to be rich, he wants to be president. That's where it becomes the entire country's problem. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.